Compound interest. You've heard it called the secret to getting rich, even the eighth wonder of the world. They say he who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. It sounds like a sure thing. Just save money, let it compound, and eventually you're swimming in wealth. So why aren't you rich yet? Why are so many diligent savers still struggling, living paycheck to paycheck or coming up short on big goals? If compounding is so powerful, something doesn't add up. Today, we're exposing the compounding myth that's keeping you poor and how to turn it around. Imagine this. You faithfully stash away a portion of each paycheck into a savings account because that interest will grow your money over time. You've seen the charts of money growing exponentially. You might even recall that famous example. If you double a penny every day for 30 days, you'd end up with over $5 million. Sounds amazing, right? But here's the reality check. Your bank isn't doubling your money. Not in 30 days, not in 30 years. In fact, most of the time, the interest you earn barely keeps up with real life. This isn't what the brochure promised. Let's break down the myth. Compound interest alone will make you wealthy. It's the idea that you can set some money aside, wait patiently, and boom, instant millionaire down the line. We've all heard it from parents, teachers, financial gurus. Just keep saving, and thanks to compound interest, you'll retire comfortably. And to be clear, the principle behind this advice isn't wrong. Saving and investing early is absolutely important. But the myth is in the oversimplification. Real wealth building isn't as effortless as throwing money in a jar and forgetting about it. There are critical factors that the rosy compounding stories often ignore. First is inflation, the silent thief. If your money is compounding at 3% but inflation is 6%, you're actually losing buying power each year. Lately, we've seen inflation spike to levels that dwarf the interest on any standard savings. For example, not long ago, inflation hit around 8 to 9% in the US, even higher in some countries, while bank accounts were yielding maybe 1% or less. Do the math. Even though your account balance number went up a bit, it would buy you less stuff than before. Your money grew, but you got poorer in real terms. That's the dark side of compounding that isn't talked about enough. Money can compound down when you account for rising prices. So if you've been diligently saving $10,000 and earning maybe $500 interest in a year, but meanwhile the cost of living went up substantially, that $10,500 you have might actually afford less than the $10,000 did a year ago. Second is the tiny interest rates. For years, interest rates on savings were near zero. Even today, high-yield savings account might give around 4% annual interest. That's better than nothing, sure, but it's not exactly the stuff of millionaires unless you're starting with a huge sum. Compounding is slow at low rates. The classic wonder stories of compounding usually assume relatively high growth rates or very long time frames, or both. If you're only getting 1 to 4%, you might wait decades just to double your money once. For instance, at 5% interest, it takes about 14 years to double a sum, thanks to the rule of 72. At 2% interest, it takes 36 years to double. Most people don't have 36 years just to double their savings, especially not for life goals like buying a home or retiring comfortably. By the time your money doubles at low interest, the price of that house or the cost of retirement may have more than doubled. That's treading water, not getting ahead. And third is the cost of living and stagnant incomes. This is a big one, keeping many people poor despite doing all the right things. If all your income is eaten up by rent, food, bills, and maybe student loans or family expenses, there's nothing left to actually save and invest. No savings means no compounding. You can't benefit from an engine you never fuel. Over the past decade, living costs, housing, healthcare, education, you name it, have ballooned, while wages for many have barely budged when adjusted for inflation. So if you feel like you're running in place financially, it's not just your imagination. Many people diligently cut expenses and save what they can, only to find it's a pittance because life is expensive. It's hard to build wealth on $50 a month of savings, no matter how magical compound interest is, because $50 growing at modest interest is still going to be modest. This isn't a personal failure, it's an economic reality for a lot of folks. Let's talk about the flip side of compounding too. Debt. That quote about "he who doesn't understand it pays it" is a warning. If you have credit card debt, personal loans, or any high interest debt, compounding is working against you, and it works fast. A credit card at 20% interest will happily compound your debt into a giant snowball if you only make minimum payments. Over a few years, a few $1,000s of debt can double and triple. This is a big reason many people stay poor. Their debt is compounding faster than their savings. Even as they try to save a bit on the side, the interest on debt is accruing at a higher rate, wiping out gains. So one huge myth, or rather misstep, is neglecting the fact that compound interest isn't inherently good or bad. It's a force. It can grow your wealth or it can deepen your debt. It depends which side of it you're on. If you're earning 3% on savings but paying 20% on debt, you don't need a math degree to know that's a losing battle. At this point, you might be thinking, alright, so is compound interest bad? Have I been lied to completely? Not exactly, and this is where the balance perspective comes in. Compound interest itself is real and powerful, but it's not a magical get-rich-quick button. The myth is treating it like a magic wand wand when it's actually more like a slow cooker. It requires the right ingredients, money, time, and a decent rate of return. And it needs patience. If any of those ingredients are missing, you're not going to get the gourmet meal you hoped for. If you're getting value so far, do me a favor. Hit like and subscribe. We keep sharing finance and wealth building strategies like this, and we don't want you to miss out. So how do we truly harness compound interest without falling for the myth? The key is to understand its limitations and strengths. Let's start with the strengths. When used properly, compounding is absolutely how ordinary people can build extraordinary wealth over time. The trick is over time. Compounding is a long game. For example, investing consistently in the stock market. History shows that broad stock indexes, like the S&P 500, have returned around 7 to 10% per year on average over many decades. At those rates, money doubles much faster than in a savings account. If you reinvest your returns, the growth begins to accelerate. But even at 7 to 8%, it still takes about 9 to 10 years to double. Real wealth from that comes after multiple decades of doubling and redoubling. Many retirement investors can attest. The first 10 to 15 years your account grows, but it might not look impressive. Then later, it snowballs. There's that famous insight about Warren Buffett. The man is worth over $100 billion today, but did you know about 90% of his wealth came after his 50th birthday? That's the power of compounding over a lifetime. Buffett started investing as a child and stayed in the game for over 70 years. The lesson isn't that you should expect to be a billionaire, but that patience and consistency are how compounding yields big results. It's get rich slow, not get rich quick. Now here's the balanced reality. If you only stash money in ultra-safe, low-return places, or if you start very late, compounding might never give you the big payoff you dream of. However, if you take a smarter approach, invest in assets that outpace inflation and provide solid returns, and you start as early as you can and keep at it, you greatly increase your chances of building wealth. It won't feel dramatic in the early years, but that's normal. Think of planting a tree. For a long time, nothing noticeable seems to happen. With water and sunlight, your ongoing contributions, it gradually grows. Decades later, you have an enormous tree that provides shade or fruits. But you can't plant a seed and expect a full-grown oak by next Tuesday. Let's address two dangerous mindsets at once: the overhype and the skepticism. On one side, some folks overhype compounding like it's automatic magic. Just set it and forget it, and you're set for life. On the other side, some people, after seeing slow progress or hearing these critiques, become jaded and think, ugh, saving is pointless, I'll never get rich that way, might as well not try. Both mindsets can hurt you. The truth is in the middle. Yes, simply saving a few bucks here and there at 1% interest will not make you rich, that's true. But not saving or investing at all definitely won't make you rich either. You have to save and invest, but do it smartly and with eyes open. So what should you do? Here are a few strategies to truly win with compound interest. 1. Invest in higher growth assets when possible. This means things like index funds, stocks, or other investments that historically return well above inflation. For instance, an index fund might average approximately 8% annually over the long run. That crushes the 0.5% from a savings account. Real estate can also compound wealth through appreciation and rental income. Plus, you can sometimes use the bank's money via a mortgage to get started, effectively leveraging compounding on someone else's money. If you're more entrepreneurial, owning a business or shares in a business can be a way to compound wealth as profits get reinvested to generate more profits. These are what the wealthy focus on. While your savings account yields 4%, their investments might be earning 10% or 15% through a mix of stocks, real estate, and business ventures. Over time, that difference is enormous. It's like two snowballs rolling, one down a shallow hill and one down a steep mountain. The steep one is going to grow much bigger by the end. 2. Start early and be consistent. Time is your best friend when compounding. The earlier you start, even with small amounts, the more periods of growth you get. Someone who begins investing at 25 will have a far larger nest egg by 65 than someone who starts at 35 with the same monthly contribution. Potentially double, in fact. If you can't start early, then start now. The second best time is now, as the saying goes. And once you start, keep feeding the machine. Regular contributions act like adding fuel to a fire, allowing compounding to build on a growing base. Skipping contributions or cashing out too early is like stopping halfway up the mountain. You lose the full potential of what could have been. 3. Kill high-interest debt. Before you even worry about investing a ton, make sure you're not leaking money to compounding in the wrong direction. Paying off a 20% credit card is like getting a guaranteed 20% return on your money because you stop that debt from growing. You'll never find a safe investment that gives 20% yearly, but clearing a 20% debt effectively does. Once high-interest debts are gone or under control, you can redirect those payments into savings/investments for your benefit instead of the bank's. 4. Don't underestimate the human factor. By that I mean increase your income and skills over time. Compound interest works best when you have more money to put into the system. If you can improve your earning power, get a better job, start a side hustle or business, develop a high-income skill, you have more fuel for your investment engine. A lot of financial advice focuses only on cutting lattes and clipping coupons, which has its place, but boosting your income can move the needle much faster. The wealthy often focus on growing their income streams and then investing that extra income. Remember, a 10% return on $10,000 is $1,000. On $100,000, it's $10,000. The more principal you have working, the more compounding can do for you. So part of beating the compounding myth is realizing you can't usually save your way to millions unless you also work on earning more or finding higher returns. At this point, you might wonder, but isn't this just common sense? Save money, invest wisely, be patient. The twist is that many people hear the first part, just save, compound interest will do the rest, and think that's the whole story. They either follow it blindly and get disappointed, or ignore it entirely because it sounds too slow. The reality is nuanced. Compound interest is an incredible force, but only when you combine it with smart choices. The right savings rate, the right investments, and the right time frame. It's not a free ride to riches, it's more like a tool. Just as a hammer can build a house or do nothing if you don't swing it properly, compound interest can build wealth or do nothing for you depending on how you use it. And let's clearly bust another part of the myth. Compounding is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's often marketed almost like magic, but in practice, it's slow magic. Early on, it will feel like watching paint dry. You might invest for a whole year and see only a modest gain. That can be discouraging. But like a snowball rolling down a long hill, the further it goes, the bigger it gets. The growth is exponential, which means small at first, massive later. Most people, unfortunately, never get to the massive later part because either they gave up, got distracted, or encountered a setback and didn't resume. But if you understand that from the start, you can set your expectations. You won't be rich in a year or 2 or 5, but 20, 30 years of smart compounding can potentially make you wealthier than you imagined, especially combined with continually improving your financial habits and opportunities during those years. It's literally how many ordinary middle-class people end up as millionaires by retirement, not by winning the lottery, not by some secret trick, but by the slow and steady growth of investments over decades. They just don't brag about it in year 5. The bragging rights come at year 30. So, where does this leave us? It leaves us with a clear message. Don't fall for the simplistic myth that compound interest alone, on autopilot, will solve all your financial problems, but also don't dismiss it as useless. The truth is empowering. You have a role to play in making compounding work for you. That means taking action, eliminating debt that drags you down, saving and investing as much as you reasonably can, as early as you can, and choosing investment vehicles that give your money a fighting chance to grow faster than inflation. It means recognizing that wealth building is a combination of offense and defense. Defense is living within your means and avoiding bad debt. Offense is earning more and investing wisely. Compound interest intersects with both. It penalizes you on the debt side and rewards you on the investment side. The idea of compound interest is still a cornerstone of financial success, but it's not a solo act. Think of it as one player on your team. You still need a solid game plan and other players like a good income, smart spending habits, and growth-oriented investments to win the money game. The old advice, money makes money, is true, but only if you put your money to work in the right places and give it enough time. If you do that, compounding will amplify your efforts. If you don't, compounding can sadly amplify the wrong things, like debt or the erosion of your savings value. The compounding myth that's keeping you poor is the notion that you can sit back and get rich doing nothing but waiting. Real wealth doesn't work like that for most of us. The world is a bit more complicated. Inflation, economic changes, personal circumstances all play a part. But now that you know, you can approach compound interest for what it truly is: a powerful ally when you actively engage with it, and a deceptive mirage if you set it and forget it in the wrong environment. Take this knowledge and use it. Reevaluate your saving strategy. Consider investing if you haven't started. Pay down that nasty debt and keep learning about finance. Do these things and you won't be kept down by a myth. You'll be leveraging a reality. Compound interest can help make you rich, but only if you play the long game and combine it with smart choices. There's no free lunch. The good news is now you're equipped to avoid the trap that keeps so many people poor. You won't just blindly trust the process, you'll make the process work for you. That's the difference. In the end, building wealth is a game of both numbers and mindset.